Annyeong! Welcome to Delightful! In this tutorial, I will be showing you how to make a sewn doll wig from start to finish. The method makes a nice professional looking durable wig and will work on any scale doll. You will need thin elastic, a thin stretchy fabric like this elastic lace, scrap paper, tape, pins, thread and needle, and of course the hair. To start, we need to turn our loose hair into wefts. Take a chunk of hair, I'm using nylon in this tutorial, and carefully separate and feather it out onto a sheet of paper. Try to get it as evenly dispersed as possible. Take your tape and de-sticky it a little bit. We want to be able to remove this later. Then, place 2 strips of tape down on either side of the center of the hair. I just eyeballed it here, but I probably should have measured. Next, turn on your sewing machine and get ready to sew down the center of that little runway you just created. I set the stitch length pretty small. I run it all the way down and back again. It should look something like this. Now comes the trickiest part of the whole process. The goal here is to flip half of the hair over onto itself and secure it again with tape so that we can sew on top of it. Different types of hair can be springier, making it hard to evenly pin it in place. I actually tried to film this tutorial with saran hair first, but it was incredibly hard to fold in half, so just do your best. It is easier to do this with shorter wefts, so there's that. Back to the sewing machine. Set your machine to zigzag stitch and make sure the stitch width is pretty small. Then carefully insert your unstable folded hair under the foot. While it's stitching, I pull the hair as flat as I can with one hand. Place the foot over the hair so that you're stitching entirely on the hair, not off onto the paper. Setting the machine back to normal stitches, I'm going to run a final line down on top of what we've already done. Now carefully remove the tape. Finally, we need to remove it from the paper, so wet it down with some water and tear it away. Voila! A perfect little weft. Well, hopefully yours is more even than mine. That's what I get for eyeballing where the center is. With this method, there's an obvious front and back side. You can try and scrape out the paper, but the paper does kind of show. So if you happen to have paper similar in color to your hair, use it. Tie the end threads together to secure the ends of the weft. Here's the weft I mentioned earlier with saran hair. Pretty crissy-crossy in comparison, but since I'll be boil washing the wig in the end, I'd probably still use it. Continue sewing wefts until you've got enough for a wig. I actually made too many here. You'll need about 62 centimeters worth of wefts for an average Monster High doll. Before we can continue, we need to make the wig cap. See how my mannequin doll's ears have been cut off? I do that to make the wig cap lay flatter on the head. You don't have to do this step if you don't want to, but I think it makes it look better in the end. Measure the circumference of your doll's head using the hairline as a guide. This doll's head is 12 centimeters around, so I'm going to subtract 1 centimeter and use that length for my elastic. The reason for this, of course, is so that our elastic stretches tight around the head. Hand sew the elastic's ends together. When you try it on the doll, it should look something like this. Next, take a scrap of your stretchy fabric and position it around the doll's head. Put your elastic band on top of it and tug and position the fabric until everything looks about right. I put the sewn together bump of the elastic at the base of the neck as a sort of marker to let me know how the wig cap is oriented. Take your sewing needle and some thread and begin sewing the fabric to the elastic. I sort of do a whip stitch. Once you've gone all the way around, trim the excess fabric, pop off the cap, and flip it inside out. Time to sew on the wefts. Pin your weft in place and begin hand stitching it to the cap. Use the stitches on the wefts as anchors to sew and secure the hair in place. If some of the stitches on the wefts are looking a little droopy, now's the time to tighten them up while you sew. I'm taking a little tacky glue and dotting it on the tops of the sewn wefts. This is just an extra measure to protect the hairs from falling out when I comb it later. You could have also added the glue before you sewed them on, but I think this is easier. When adding your wefts, make sure to sew them pretty side facing up. Start at the ends of the wig cap and work your way inwards in a spiral fashion. If the end of one weft is kind of wimpy and thin, just overlap it a little with the next. Also, if you have thicker wefts or areas of the weft that are thicker than the rest, try to position that part on the top of the head, so we can use that hair to our advantage later when we make the part. So eventually you've sewn around and around until the wig looks something like this, with this little hole at the top. Here's how we're going to finish the wig. Take one last weft and roll it up tight until it's about the size of the hole. If the weft is too long, just cut it off and seal the end with some tacky glue. Once you've gauged the correct length of this final weft, begin slowly spiraling and sewing it to itself. Ideally, you want it to be flat when you're done. If it's sticking up too far, press it against a hard surface and try and push it in. If you sewed it way too tight like I did and it won't budge, then yeah. There we go. Nice and flat. Now that the last weft is ready, we need to secure it to the wig cap. I take the wig off the doll's head to do this, flipping it back and forth to make the job easier. I'm stitching all the way around, and when that's done, a few stitches in the center to help it lay flat. Fantastic! Now we can put the wig back on the doll, and voila! You have a very avant-garde hairstyle. Find the center of the spiraled weft we just sewed on, and disperse the hairs evenly away from the center as best you can. Pull it flat and fit a rubber band around the head to hold it in place. Next, I'm going to boil wash the hair. This will ensure that the hair lays flat and looks natural. Please make sure your hair can be boil washed before you do this so that you don't ruin all that hard work. Actually, make sure it can be boil washed before you even sew the wefts. However, if you don't want to boil wash it, I've heard hair dryers on low settings can also get the job done. All that's left now is the styling, which can be anything you want. Let me show you how to make a part on this style of wig. Obviously, if we just run a line down the center, you're going to see the gaps between the wefts, and that's no good. So here's what you need to do. Make a crude part first. Then, working from front to back, grab two small pieces of hair like this and cross them to the opposite sides. Doing this overlaps and conceals the weft in front of it. Once you've worked the hair all the way back, it should look something like this. If you want bangs instead, comb down however much you'd like in front of the face. The more hair you take from farther back, the thicker they'll be. Making sure you haven't lost sight of the center, determine the sides and how far you'd like your bangs to go. It's always best to start too long and work your way shorter. For this wig, I want to have a layered effect to show off all those pretty colors underneath, so I'm feathering the colors accordingly. Neaten up the edges and style it however you'd like. For some great hairstyling tutorials, check out Jay Lantis Toys channel. He's really good with hair. Here's my finished wig! It turned out really good. I actually started this tutorial using random excess colors of hair I happen to have lying around, but I think it's my best wig yet. I hope I was clear and you found this tutorial helpful for when you make your own wigs. Have fun! And I'd love to see your work. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Delightfully so I can see what you made. Wigs or reroots, which one do you prefer? Hit that like and subscribe button for more doll custom tutorials, and I'll see you in my next video. Stay artsy! Annyeong!